And I said this to start the show today, Rick. It was a weird year. We usually look, if you're a number one seed in the West, you're a great team. But the Warriors tanked, and the Clippers, Paul George was out, and they had stars. And OKC was kind of a rebuild early, and Portland didn't have Nurkic. And Mike Conley got hurt for the Jazz. And I look at it, and I think they're a number one seed, but it doesn't feel like your typical Western Conference number one seed. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, they remind me a lot of the old Utah Jazz and San Antonio Spurs teams where because of their leadership, because of what was at stake, they would always play as close to their potential on a nightly basis, more so than anybody else. And so as a result, their regular season record would always look really good. And we would have all these expectations. All those years we were like, oh, you keep trying to stick a fork in the Spurs, and look, here they are again. They got one of the top records in the Western Conference. And then we would get to the playoffs, and everybody would put their A game out there, and suddenly we realized, oh, the Spurs have been giving us their A game. They don't have another level to go to. And I suspect on some level that LeBron knew that and knew what he had, that the playoffs with this Lakers team was going to be an absolute crap, relying on so many guys who have never done it before, that he was like, you know what? I need to prove that I can do it in the West just like I did it in the East. And if I'm going to prove that, I better do it during the regular season, because I don't know that this team is going to get me where I need to go to make that point in the postseason.
You know, it's a really good point. LeBron's always been a little ahead in terms of players and analytics. And, I mean, he went to the three-pointer 12 years ago. He figured it out in his last few years the first time in Cleveland, and a lot of guys did not. It's interesting. People look at Portland, and it took Carmelo years to figure out exactly where he fit perfectly, but he's found it. Nurkic is really good. Dame, to me, is the best hit a shot from deep in the bubble. You know, a lot of people are saying Portland can't defend LeBron, but I got to tell you, nobody for the Lakers can defend Dame. That it looks like it's going to be a series. Lakers, Blazers. Your thoughts on it?
I'm not convinced that the Blazers can win the series, but I am convinced that they can extend it and make it a lot harder on the Lakers than they would want, and that LeBron at 35 would want. If you look at all of the years that he has gone to the finals and or won a championship, he's always eased through the first round. It's been a sweep, or it's been 5 games. There was only 1 year when it wasn't, when the Pacers took him to 7 games, and he had nothing left by the time that they got to the Warriors and they got swept out. So I believe that the same thing could happen here. Yes, they're going to have an issue defending LeBron. They don't have that one guy. If they had Rodney Hood or Trevor Ariza, I think they'd have a better chance at that. But they do have a thing that the Lakers have relied on all year, which is size. And they actually may have better size on the front line and more talented size on the front line, AD accepted, than almost any other team, and than the Lakers do. I mean, Nurkic and Hassan Whiteside and Zach Collins, I'm going to take that over JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. So they have, and then don't sleep on Anthony Simons and Gary Trent Jr. They have depth and versatility, and I think that's going to make this a series a lot like the Warriors last year. They needed to get through the Clippers fast, and when it took 6 games, it was like, they're expending energy now that they were going to need later, and ultimately it did cost them. Yeah,
Gary Trent Jr. has been surprising from outside, and they have tremendous size and depth. I think Portland is, and they're playing with house money, man. When you're an 8 seed and you're facing a 1, you have nothing to lose.
Hey, and Colin, don't underestimate. In 2018, Anthony Davis and the Pelicans swept them out and upset them as the 3rd seed. Don't think that doesn't stick in Damian Lillard's craw, CJ McCollum, Yusuf Nurkic, who got abused by Anthony Davis. Like, if they see the Lakers and Anthony Davis, they are going to have a point that they want to prove.
You know, I was saying this about if anything's too hard, it's not right. And every business, when you start, you have to pivot. No business goes right. We look at Amazon and Netflix. They're great examples. They rule America, but they it was a tough struggle. But if something is hard 10 years in, it's not right, or after you've done it a while. And I'm watching Embiid and Simmons. They've moved Simmons to a new position. Brett Brown's on the hot seat. Embiid's arguing with teammates the other day. Simmons is hurt last night. They struggle against Washington. They had to rearrange the deck chairs again with their roster, bring in Al Horford. And I look at this, Rick, and I'm watching them last night, and I'm thinking to myself, geez, it's 3 years in. It still doesn't work right. Why can't they just acknowledge, break them up, and start over?
Because the talent is too great, and I don't know that you could get it back. And they invested 4 years of losing to get this roster. So it's really hard when you've made that kind of a sacrifice, and then you admit, you know what, the process and all that we went through and what we got out of it, not really delivering. And this is the heart of it. And then, by the way, America, this is why you hire show with Colin Cowherd, because everything weaves together. There are big themes being discussed here, and they go from sport to sport. And the point you were making with Joy about Tom Brady and Bruce Arians being able to yell at the best player and Dwayne Wade taking it from Pat Riley, that ultimately is at the heart of the Philadelphia 76ers problem. I think you could probably find a way to make Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid work together. And I do think moving Ben to point forward is a move that needed to be made. But the heart of it is they do not have a leader. And Brett Brown can't yell at Ben Simmons. He can't yell at Joel Embiid. He can't make demands. And look, Ben Simmons has had year upon year upon year to develop a three-point shot, to develop a jump shot of any kind. And he has resisted that. And when Brett has brought it up, he's fought it. You simply can't have that from the guy that's supposed to be your floor leader and your leader in general. And Joel is just still kind of a goofy kid. That's not going to fly. Honestly, losing JJ Redick was probably the biggest leader that they had on the team. And when they lost him, that's never going to work anyway. You need your best players to be your leaders, but at least they had that element. I look at them now, and that's the missing ingredient. Who's driving the bus? They got a lot of talent, but they don't have somebody who calls everybody out and says, look, this isn't good enough. We need to do it this way.
So this is a depressing story. Dr. Brian Sutterer of sports injury YouTube fame. He's a doctor. And he talked about Zion Williamson, who I think we both love. And he said, quote, he's in a race against his own body. He goes, nobody will call it like they see it. He is, right now, I'll read this. If you watch Duke highlights compared to now, the difference is profound. Athleticism, conditioning have regressed substantially. Less explosive, less conditioned, slower on defense. Already a portion of his meniscus has been removed from his knee after an injury. He's still under close monitoring. What do you make of that?
Well, I love the fact that we have a YouTube sensation in Zion being diagnosed by a YouTube doctor. Somehow that seems like the world is in sync. He says nobody will say it. I've been saying it.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about we've never seen somebody like Zion in the NBA. Yeah, there's a reason. Because bodies built like his that play explosively the way he does generally don't work playing the way the NBA game is played. And it's exciting and it's amazing, but is it sustainable? That is the big question. And let's be realistic here. Like Charles Barkley had a lot of the same things. 6'4", 6'5", explosive. But Charles had a complete game. Charles could shoot from range. Charles could pass it. Charles didn't always have to be explosive to get what he needed. And the game is played different now. There are so many more possessions. It is so up and down. Like, you look at all the guys that are even the bigs, it's all about losing weight. It's all about staying light. Even guys like Danilo Gallinari, like, they are skinny compared to where they were 5-6 years ago. That's what we're not seeing with Zion is, we saw the Instagram posts of him, and I don't need photos. I don't need beach